And again, everybody, a little louder. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I welcome all of you to His Holiness Candramauli Swami daily class. And today Maharaj will continue on Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 1, verse 24. We'll wait for Maharaj for a minute. I'm sure all of you will be celebrating Jhulan Yatra in your respective temples and places.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
I'm Veronica. I am in Spain, in Nueva Brajamandala Temple, and we are having Julan Yatra every day.
Jai, very nice.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji, for sharing. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Maharaj, I will share the screen if it's okay with you. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 1, verse 24.
Okay. Om
Over to
Namo
you.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Visheshatasya Deho Yam Stavatascha Staviyasam Yatvedam Vyajyate Vishwam Bhutabhavyam Avachasat. The gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. Read it again. The gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. Purport. Anything material or spiritual is but an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 13:13. The omnipotent Lord has his transcendental eyes, heads, and other bodily parts distributed everywhere. He can see, hear, touch, or manifest himself anywhere and everywhere. He is present everywhere as a super soul of all infinitesimal souls, although he has his particular abode in the absolute world. The relative world is also his phenomenal representation because it is nothing but an expansion of his transcendental energy. Although he is in his abode, his energy is distributed everywhere, just as the sun is localized as well as expanded everywhere, since the rays of the sun, being non-different from the sun, are accepted as expansions of the sun disk. In the Vishnu Puran 1:22-52, it is said that as fire expands its rays and heats from one place, similarly the Supreme Spirit, Personality of Godhead, expands himself by his manifold energy everywhere and anywhere. The phenomenal manifestation of the gigantic universe is only part of his Virat body. Less intelligent men cannot conceive of the transcendental all-spiritual form of the Lord, but they are astonished by his different energies, just as the Aborigines are struck with wonder by the manifestation of lightning, a gigantic mountain, or a hugely expanded banyan tree. The Aborigines praise the strength of the tiger and the elephant because of their superior energy and strength. The Assyrians cannot recognize the existence of the Lord, although there are vivid descriptions of the Lord in the revealed scriptures. Although the Lord incarnates and exhibits his uncommon strength and energy, and although he is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by learned scholars and saints like Vyas, Narada, Sita, Devala, in the past, and by Arjuna in the Gita, and also by the Acharyas like Shankar, Ramanuj, Madhva, Sri Chaitanya in the modern age. The Asuras don't accept any evident proof from the revealed scriptures, nor do they recognize the authority of the great Acharyas. They want to see with their own eyes at once. Therefore, they can see the gigantic body of the Lord as Virat, which will answer their challenge. And since they are accustomed to paying homage to superior material strength like that of a tiger, elephant, and lightning, they can offer respects to the Virat Rupa. Lord Krishna, by the request of Arjuna, exhibited his Virat Rupa for the Asuras. A pure devotee of Lord, being unaccustomed to looking into such a mundane, gigantic form of the Lord, requires special vision for the purpose. The Lord therefore favored Arjuna with special vision for looking into his Virat Rupa, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This Virat Rupa of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna, but for the unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord, and so mislead the general mass of people. For them, the indication is that one should ask the chief incarnation to exhibit his Virat Rup and thus be established as an incarnation. The Virat Rup manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheists and a favor for the Asuras, who can think of the Lord as Virat and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their heart in order to become qualified to see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future. This is a favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheists and the gross materialists. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami 18th. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastatya Dev Sataniye Panchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll return in less than 20 seconds. And this is a very detailed and very sophisticated way to describe how the Lord manifests himself everywhere and anywhere in different features of himself. The material world is imagined as an expansion of his form, illustrating different parts of his transcendental body and representative to the different features that make up the material energy, such as, his bones are mountains, his hairs on his bodies are the trees, and, the lakes and rivers are the oceans are his abdomen, like that. These are for as it says here, for the non-devotees, for the atheists, even for the demons, who have some conception of greatness beyond their own, but cannot connect it to a personality. So they learn to worship greatness and see greatness as something that is awe-inspiring and something that they want to learn more about or connect more with. So the Lord is very kind. But for the devotees, it says here, Arjuna, he needed special vision to understand this because he was seeing Krishna in his form as Krishna's face to face, the transcendental, all-powerful, unmanifested form of the Lord in his original form as Krishna. So he wasn't accustomed to seeing this imaginary form before. So Krishna had to give him special eyes. But we see for the atheists, it's very helpful because it helps them to understand that there's a power greater than them, although they can't perceive it as a being the Supreme Lord themselves, because they don't accept that. Sometimes we see spirituality for atheism in the name of spirituality. Just like we hear about persons who present themselves as being God or an incarnation of God. And how, when you face such persons, and there are persons like that, depends where you go in the world. Most of them are coming from India, most of them are in India, but they also come to the West in order to, what we say, cheat people who have no knowledge about God, and because they have some mystic power, some abilities to do things beyond the material energy, the norm of material energy. People accept them as being God or something from incarnation of God. But there are ways to expose such persons, and that's why Krishna manifested in universal form, just as a way to challenge those who claim to be incarnations of God. We say, if they speak that way, we say, all right, if you're a God, then show us your universal form. And they can't do that because they're not God, although they may fake it. Sometimes they say, well, you're not qualified to see my universal form. And then we say, well, has anyone else ever seen the universal form that you display? And then they can't really answer. And then they say, well, no one is qualified. Then if no one is qualified, then what is the purpose of you manifesting yourself as the supreme, because you can't even teach others about yourself? So there's always ways to defeat these rascals who want to be presented as God or worshipped in that way. And there's a whole collection of them all over the world. Somebody gets a little bit of power or has a dream about their own personal greatness, they start thinking in that way. And then they start speaking, and then people who are, what we say, not properly informed about how to understand who is God, they immediately accept that. If God is one, there cannot be two gods. Someone used to say to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, when they wouldn't say call him Prabhupada, they would challenge him and say, well, I'm God. And Prabhupada said, well, if you're God, please accept my humble obeisances. Now sit down and be quiet. Or sometimes they would say, I'm God. When we say, that's nice, you're a God, but we know a God that's better than you. His name is Krishna. So we like him because he's got all good qualities. But we see you don't have any of them. So they're all around the world, these pretentious persons, cheaters, in the name of some kind of personal aggrandizement, because the living entity is conditioned to want to be recognized, to be worshipped, to be noticed, to gain some prestige by doing something which will create people to look at them as someone who's important, someone who is great. So when it falls into the spiritual category, they also are like that. But we know, as we hear here, that's why by carefully studying Srimad Bhagavatam and hearing from the great souls, we get a clear understanding of who Krishna is and what is not Krishna, or what presents itself as being the supreme, but is actually not. So if we read and study Bhagavatam and hear from the great souls, and there's so much evidence that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, just like in the Bhagavad Gita, it's also mentioned here in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna says, Param Dhamma, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Parvitram Paramam Bhavam. That you are the original supreme Brahman, you are the personality of Godhead. inexhaustible, invincible and inexhaustible. And after glorifying Krishna in so many ways, he also confirms his glorification by mentioning others who say the same thing, such as Vyasadeva, Narada, Asita, Devala. All of these great persons have also spoken the same, that you are the Supreme Lord. The speaker of the Bhagavad Gita is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People will like to present Bhagavad Gita in their own ideas on how Bhagavad Gita should be presented in order to entice people to follow them in their philosophy. I remember I was sitting on an airplane, and this was in India. Met a very nice gentleman who was sitting next to me. And we were talking, and he was very polite, very respectful. Had many, what we say, good personal qualities. And then he said that he was a follower of a particular guru who also did a version of Bhagavad Gita, which teaches that Shiva is the supreme. And he wanted to give me a copy. Because he was so nice and gracious, I respectfully said, well, thank you, but I have enough, to read in my present Bhagavad Gita. I won't have time to read that. So I tried to very nicely. But I didn't try to defeat him because I know he wouldn't accept defeat anyway. People, they get their gurus, and they believe anything the guru says, because one of the qualifications of a person who has some Shakti is that they can speak in a convincing way. This is one of the mystic powers. There are people that can make you do anything simply by their words. They mesmerize a person simply by the power of speech. It's a form of material Shaktis, and Krishna mentions these in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. After mentioning, Krishna rejects all of them. He mentions them just to show what they are, what they actually do, and how they're very much in the realm of material power. Therefore, a devotee are not attracted to these things. But devotees have all material power because they take shelter of Krishna, who is the supreme power in existence. So if devotees need any power, they simply take shelter of Krishna, and Krishna will provide whatever power they need if it is in line with devotional service. Devotees can do, just like how is it we're able to distribute so many hundreds and millions of books? Because devotees they have that Shakti. That Shakti is coming from their bhakti. And because they have that bhakti Shakti, are connected with the Supreme Lord. When they speak, people listen, even though many of them times they're not even interested in what we're doing. But we make them interested simply by the power of our devotional practice. And that's Krishna. That's Krishna working through the devotee to inspire the devotee to do wonderful service on his behalf. We see, and even like physical strength, we have an example of Srila Prabhupada. They were building an altar in one place, I can't remember. I think it might have been in London. And they had built the altar in pieces. So they had two very heavy columns, which were the sides of the altar. And they put the columns there. And Prabhupada was watching as they were putting the altar together. And then they put a top piece, which was another heavy column above these other columns. And then the devotees moved away to get more pieces. But Prabhupada was sitting in the front row watching, and then he could see that column on the top was shaking and it was about to fall, and the deities were already there underneath. So that column was really heavy. It took two men to carry it. Prabhupada got up and jumped up, and when the column fell, Prabhupada caught it and held it over his head, and then the devotees came and helped Prabhupada. But I mean, no ordinary person could have caught that column, that column the way Prabhupada did. Prabhupada just exhibited his Shakti. So it was a nice experience. Devotees were amazed to see how strong Prabhupada was. So Prabhupada gives all credit to Krishna. Like that. So yeah. And here, I mean, this particular verse is about showing some favor to those who are materialists. So to take the principle of awe and reverence that is so much part of the material energy and connect it to an image of the Supreme Lord as an imprint upon the mind of a person in the form of the Lord. The form is imaginary. We're going to be hearing about this Virat Rupa form for many verses. This will go on verse after verse after verse. It gets really interesting how the Virat Rupa is seen and experienced by the non-devotees. But Krishna, he loves all living entities. And so he exhibits his personality in different impersonal ways. So everyone can somehow or other recognize that there is a supreme power in existence. And that's his special mercy like that. Even the demons are mentioned here. So there's a few nice verses that are being referred to here in the Vishnu Purana to show that the Lord is one and manifested himself in the spiritual world. But he doesn't have to come to the material world to perform his activities. He can do it simply by his energies. And the example is that the sun is localized, but the sun rays is all pervading. Similarly, the Lord's energies are working everywhere at all times. This is very important to see that because nothing happens without the sanction of the Lord. And all of that sanction is under his control, either directly when it comes to the spiritual activities or energies, or indirectly when it comes to the material. Through the material, he works through his manifestations, such as the demigods and some of the powerful personalities, such as Ganesh, Durga, and also Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma. These are all his representatives who control different aspects of the creation and the activities within the creation, and they simply work under his control. Nothing happens without the grace of the Lord. Sometimes the Lord allows things to happen which appears to be something that is not very favorable from the material point of view. But then that means he doesn't interfere with how the material energy is working, because he puts the material energy in working in such a way, just like a watchmaker will make a watch and put all of the dials and the different features of the watch in a very synchronized way. And by pushing certain buttons, you get different readings like that. You may even get the weather, how many steps you walk, all of these things. So you can see even from the material perspective how intelligent people are to make something such as a watch with so many different features to it. So if an ordinary person can do that, or a person in the material world can do that, Krishna can do it simply by thinking about it. For him, it's not a problem. And the intelligence that people in the material world get in order to do whatever they're doing, which seems to be sometimes very wonderful and great. That intelligent, Krishna says, that's me. Sarvasya Hamradi Sani Visto Matar Smita Apohanam Cha. So if a devotee learns one thing, that there's nowhere, there's only one place to go, and that is to surrender unto the Supreme Lord. Because without surrendering to the Supreme Lord, you're surrendering to the Supreme Lord anyway. No one cannot surrender to the Lord. But there's voluntary surrender, and then there's surrender that comes by way of force. Just like in the family, the good child surrenders to the parents and gets all the mercy of the parents. Parents take care of that. The bad child doesn't want to listen to the parents, and therefore gets the mercy of the parents in a different way that is not very pleasant. So in the same way, all living entities in any categories of life, in any species of life, are completely under the control of the Supreme Lord. His control is complete. And we have the example of how, in a very minute way, Krishna manifests his control. This is the story of Sanatana Goswami, the great Sanatana Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. He was doing his bhajan in a place nearby Vrindavan called Manasi Ganga. Manasi Ganga is a beautiful lake. It's a place where Krishna, Radha, and Krishna had many pastimes. So he was on the outskirts of Manasi Ganga, and he was writing his books. And as he was writing, he would write late into the evening, when the mosquitoes would come. And then it became somewhat of a botheration that mosquitoes were coming, and it was causing him difficulty to continue in his writings. So he continued on, he tolerated the mosquitoes, but at one point it got too much and he decided to move to another place. Now he was thinking, tomorrow night I'm not coming back here. Now, next to Manasi Ganga is Chakaleshwara Mahadev. There's a temple there of Lord Shiva. And so Lord Shiva was very much appreciating the association of Sanatana Goswami, such a great personality. So when Shiva learned that Sanatana Goswami was not going to come back the other night, he was thinking, this is not good. So he disguised himself as a sadhu and came to Sanatana that same night and said, my dear Sanatana, do not worry. I can guarantee you, if you stay here another night, there will not be any mosquitoes. And so Sanatana took the advice of this sadhu, who was actually Lord Shiva in disguise. And he stayed, and he came back the next night. And the next night, there were no mosquitoes. And so what happened was Lord Shiva went to the demigod, who was in charge of mosquitoes. There's a demigod in charge of all features of existence. That's why they say there's 33 million demigods. They each have some portion of the control of the material energy, which they manifest. So even for insects, there is a demigod who controls the mosquitoes. So he went to that demigod and said, keep your mosquitoes away from Manasi Ganga, from Sanatana Goswami. And therefore, the next night there was nothing. And to this day, people say in that same area, there are no mosquitoes. So yeah, so this is an example of how what we say, complete the control of the universe. You can't, Prabhupada said, you can't even lift your eyelid unless there is a demigod who gives you permission to do it. That means these demigods, they work under the control of the Supreme Lord. And for some reason, if the Supreme Lord doesn't want something to happen, then the demigods comply with the instructions of the Lord. And you might be sitting there and all of a sudden you can't lift your eyelid up. Of course, that doesn't happen because the Lord doesn't do that to devotees or anyone generally. It may happen because of some disease, which is also part of his control also. But ultimately, the point is, every aspect of our life is fully and completely controlled. Everything. From the time you get up in the morning to the time you get up the next morning. It's 24/7. There is complete control by higher energies, by higher powers. So our duty is to plug into the spiritual energy and rise above the material energy, which causes us so many difficulties. The material energy works to restrict and to punish the living entities for their activities in the material world. And therefore, one who's actually intelligent will start to think, wow, I want to be happy, I want to be successful, I want to do things, but there's so many disturbances, so many reverses, so many causes of suffering. A person will think, maybe there's a way out of this, and that is to engage fully in devotional service. Therefore, there's basically only two choices we have. We can either be Krishna conscious or we can suffer. That's basically all there is. There's no in between. The suffering means we put ourselves under the external energy. And if we put ourselves under Krishna's, what is called Parashakti, the Napara, but the Apara Shakti, or the Daivi Shakti, the spiritual energy, then the devotee is free, the devotee is happy, the devotee can do so many things, and the devotee is enjoying life simply by serving the Lord in devotional service. And then, Tattva Deham Purna Janma, 19 Mameti Sorjuna, then the devotee, after performing all of the activities of devotional service, at the time of death, will remember Krishna, and then, as Krishna says, Ante Kalevaram Yam Yam Vapi Tvaram Bhavam Ante Kalevaram. In other words, at the time of death, one remembers Krishna, and one goes back to the spiritual world, where life is eternal, full of knowledge and unlimited happiness in different varieties of activities. The varieties in this world are many, but in the varieties in the spiritual world are much more than the varieties in this world. We can't imagine, we can't even figure out the varieties in this world, how many varieties of way that life can go on. But in the spiritual world, it's unlimited. Here it's limited, but still within the limited, there are many. So the spiritual world is unlimited, full of varieties. And we're all imbued with the rasa vaisa, or the Shakti ras, the sweetness of Krishna's internal energy, the Ladini Shakti, which is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, which gives pleasure to the devotees as they engage in various spiritual activities centered around pleasing Krishna. So don't try to control this material world. You can't. It's already being controlled. It works in a certain way. And when people break the laws of the material energy simply just like, for an instance, I'll give you an example. You're driving in your car, you're using your, what does they call it? GPS, all right? So you're following your GPS, but then you make a wrong turn and you go another way outside of the GPS, and then the GPS recalculates and then brings you back through the recalculation. And this happens every time you deviate. So in the same way, when people follow the material energy, at least they become pious and have a chance to engage in devotional service. But when they don't, material energy recalculates and gives them suffering, punishment, and different ways to bring them back to their senses. So when we see how everything is fully controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that ultimately, a devotee who is intelligent and who understands this, there's only one thing to do: engage in devotional service. That's all. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj, for nicely highlighting the supremacy of the Lord. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. If you have any questions, comments, realization, I request all of you to please raise your hand, or you can type in chat window if you want me to read on your behalf or ask on your behalf. Also, humble request, if you can switch on your video. That's a nice way to interact with Maharaj. And he really appreciates that.
We need a few more cameras. Come on. I know you're there. We're not impersonalists.
I think it's a good way to ask. Like, if you believe Krishna is personal, then please show your personality form.
Come on, Sita Rani, don't hide. Anand Sagar, I know you're there. You always like to put your camera on. Who else we got there? Balaram and Tanya. So many more. Kalakanti. Haribol Kalakanti. There you go. See that? That smile just brightens up the whole screen. Thank you.
So Hare Krishna Maharaj, like while devotee asks any question, definitely request devotee, please raise your hand. But Maharaj, you mentioned one thing that this person who was following his guru and on Bhagavad Gita, he mentioned that he still feels that Shiva is supreme. So it's very, very surprising. I have heard somebody reading other scriptures and saying maybe somebody else is supreme. But after reading Bhagavad Gita, how come anybody can even think and dream that somebody else is supreme?
It's called Maya Parita Gyan, and now it's been stolen by illusion. Krishna speaks about such persons who are very intelligent, but they have no real intelligence. It's just some intellectual gymnastics, that's all. Different strokes for different folks. People come up with all kinds of ideas.
Now you can speak.
You can even get into the ridiculous also. Navadweep Chandra, is that you in the background there?
It is Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Hey.
Somehow I had the fortune of being in the right place at the right time to catch your darshan.
Me too. I got a chance. I saw you in the background. I saw, what's he doing there?
Mataji very kindly showed me the classes going on. So I'm sorry for interrupting, Maharaj.
If you have any hard questions, ask the Navadweep Chandra. He knows the scripture backwards, forwards, sideways, upside down, inside out.
I'm just trying to understand it straight now, Maharaj. I'm working on, I've got the backward experience. Now I'm trying to go the correct direction.
Okay.
With your guidance.
The conclusion is the same. Ante Narayana Smriti, right?
Haribo. Thank you.
Matsya Prabhu, you raised your hand. Just realized that it's not there. That was mistake, or?
Hare Krishna, my humble obeisance. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. My humble obeisance. No, this little exchange on the Bhagavad Gita reminded me of something, and I thought to share, but then you went into other direction. anyway, now being asked, there is a Vaishnav book called Lakshmi Tantra.
Mhm.
And it's a Vaishnav book, it's a bona fide book. But in that book, Lakshmi Devi speaks the Bhagavad Gita pretty much the same things as Krishna speaks to Arjuna. From her perspective, saying that she is the supreme. So she's speaking the same way Krishna does, but from her own eye.
Mhm.
And it's a bona fide Vaishnav scripture. Of course, she gives credit to the Purusha as well.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing is that she speaks the book as if she is the supreme.
But
So,
she doesn't call it Bhagavad Gita, though.
no, of course, it's called Lakshmi Tantra.
Yeah, so that's
It's called
okay.
Tantra, but it's still it's a Vaishnav, bona fide Vaishnava book. So just
Yeah.
to offer another perspective.
That's good, but when someone uses the Bhagavad Gita and interprets it in a different way than what is intended to be, that's where the cheating comes in.
Yes.
Yeah, Lakshmi is just using the same knowledge, which is eternal knowledge, to present for people to worship her, because she is also an aspect of the supreme absolute truth, and that's for people who are in the Vaikuntha mood. Aishwarya Bhav. Yeah, nice. How big is the scripture?
I'm sorry, once again?
How lengthy is that book?
How light?
Lengthy.
How lengthy? I'll bring it to you tomorrow. It's not lengthy at all. That's smaller font. I can't remember. I mean, I have it in a bag in a library. I can bring it to you tomorrow to have a look if you like.
Okay, good. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that point. That's interesting. Be interesting to see how she presents herself. Any other comments, questions?
Yes, Selfish Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to yourself, Maharaj. Maharaj, so you were saying that the demigods look after the material world, but we shouldn't go to the demigods if we need something. We should come join with the Devi Shakti of Krishna. But with Krishna, we're looking more for liberation and trying to solve the material problems. Is that correct? That we just have to kind of tolerate our material existence?
Well, there is a point to be considered, and that is Krishna says that whatever the demigods can provide is ultimately coming from me. That's in the Bhagavad Gita. And sometimes we say to keep people within the house of Veda, that one may approach the Supreme with something material. But better to do it within that category than to go outside and do it without any kind. In other words, you're worshiping Krishna, but you're asking him for something material. But the fact is, there is the worship of Krishna is there, which keeps one within the confines of the Vedic culture, which can help lead later for that same person to become more and more attached to Krishna, and eventually come to the point of worshiping Krishna in the mood of devotion. But that's concessionary. It's not for devotees generally. That's for people who want something material and they pray to Krishna for that. We don't throw them out, but we understand that their intelligence is somewhat disturbed, because if they really want, it's like Prabhupada talks about the lady who, she's an old lady, she's carrying a heavy load, and she's walking along, and the load is very heavy, and she drops the load, and now she's crying, "Oh my God, the load fell. I can't pick it up." She calls God, "Oh God, please help me, please help me." And then she's really crying out, and Krishna comes and says, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Can you put the load back on my back, please?" So Krishna comes personally. Krishna said, "What a nonsense, you know." She could ask anything else, but she's asking. So we go to God to ask him to put the load back on our back. They're asking him for something material. Same thing.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Mohanasni, Radha Devi Mataji. Please go ahead.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Maharaj. Um, mm,
Little bit
I don't
louder.
know if I understood.
Yeah,
Huh?
little louder.
Okay. I don't know if I understood properly, but I would like to ask you. You mentioned that everything is already set up. What should happen, this will happen. But where is then our free will?
Well,
The
you have your free will to choose between the material and the spiritual. But as soon as you put yourself in one category of choice, then you get a reaction according to the category of choice. That's all. There's only two choices. Either you act within the material or you act within the spiritual. And everything works according to the quality of your desire. That's all.
so the
No,
reaction is predestined.
if you accept the material energy as supreme and want to enjoy or become successful through material activities, then you're going to get a series of results based on the three modes of material energy, depending on the quality of your desire. But that's already planned. You can't get out of that. If you want to get out of that, you have to come to the spiritual and act within the spiritual. Then the activities you perform bring you closer to Krishna, don't have any material consequences, no material reactions. So you only have two choices.
But if we turn to spiritual way, then still there are some reactions which we need to go through, right? That we can grow.
Well, in the spiritual, you're getting purified. But the purification comes by way of freeing you from the material coverings. That's all. That's the reactions. The spiritual is pure. It's uplifting. But cutting through, just like when you go for an operation, the operation is going to bring you back to health, but sometimes the operation, the surgeon has to cut here and there. So another name for sadhu is he who cuts. The spirit, Krishna, through his pure devotees, cut through your material desires, your material attachments. And that seems to be painful, but it's actually beneficial.
Thank you very much.
The medicine may be bitter, but Lord Chaitanya is so kind, he's made the medicine sweet. But we won't take the sweet medicine. We like the bitter medicine. The sweet medicine is hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Just do kirtan. That's all. Do 6, 7, 8 hours of kirtan a day. If you do that for about a year, you'll be back to the spiritual world in no time. That's all. Well, how many of us will do that? Do kirtan all day, every day. And that kirtan will purify you and then bring you back to your natural consciousness of loving Krishna and feeling that exchange. You're actually meeting Krishna through the holy name. Kirtan is the direct, the most powerful, and most recommended way for the fast track back to Godhead. But we won't take the fast track. We'll instead of getting on the fast train, we'll ride our bicycle next to the train. That's the problem. Just do kirtan, that's all. That's what Lord Chaitanya came to teach us. Kirtan. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalon, Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. No other way, no other way, no other way. He tells you directly. Right, where's Rasa Vilas? She's there somewhere? Yeah, Radha, there she is in the corner. There you go. Right? It's all about kirtan, Rasa, right?
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, she's a kirtan monster.
No, Maharaj. All glory to you. It's all because of your mercy, Maharaj. I am nothing, Maharaj.
Yeah, so just do kirtan. That's fine.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Then that's the expert operation. The patient will survive and get a new life. And of course, do kirtan with devotees. And then when you associate with devotees, you develop friendship and you develop loving relationships with devotees, and then spiritual world opens up. Okay?
I hope Mataji, it's okay with you.
She's gonna say something here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Maharaj, just like in one line, if I understood correctly, it's like due to our previous karma, situations may arise in our life or will arise in our life, but what do we desire is our free will, and that's sanctioned by Krishna. Is that?
Say that. What was the last part?
So my point was that due to previous karma, situations will arise in our life, but what do we desire? That's our free will, and that's sanctioned by Krishna. Finally, like whatever is right or wrong for us.
Well, how you react to situations is whether you'll elevate yourself by the situation or go down because of the situation. One who sees me and everything I'm in me, I'm never lost, and no, he's ever lost to me. Because as we were saying, there's nothing outside of Krishna. So the situations he puts you in ultimately are opportunities for becoming more Krishna conscious, becoming more detached, becoming more educated in the philosophy. Something, there's always some benefit. For devotee, everything is auspicious. There's nothing inauspicious for a devotee. But getting rid of our material attachments, sometimes we find it difficult because we're so attached, you know. It's like we say, my dear Lord, I'm surrendering unto you, and here is a list of the things that you should do and the things that you should not do. So here you can take these things away, but this other list, don't touch that. This is how our prayers are made. But when we know that Krishna is all good, and Krishna, well, he's patient. He's patient. He'll come to you and say, have you had enough of the material life yet? You say, well, not yet. I still got a few more plans that I haven't fulfilled yet. He said, all right, go ahead and try fulfilling them. Come back when you're tired. He's very
Thank-
merciful.
Thank you, Maharaj. Shridevi Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Vrindavan. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, in this purport, it is said that the Virat Roop is especially for the atheists and gross materialists, for them to meditate on and then come to the transcendental form of the Lord. But they don't want to admit that there is God. They don't want to accept the evidence which is before their eyes. So how will they be able to meditate on this Virat Roop when they are not even willing to admit that there is God? And not willing to see how nature is being controlled by a superior power, how they will be able to meditate on this Virat Roop and gradually cleanse the dirty things to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form in the near future?
Well,
How is all this going to happen?
I'm going to answer it. And that Virat Roop is there for them to see the imaginary form of the Lord. And therefore, this is called the first step in God realization. This is the name of the chapter. So they're getting some purification because they're recognizing there's a higher power, a superior power. And if they take up the meditation on the Virat Roop, or at least think of the Virat Roop, there's some purification. Something. It may be small, but it's something. And maybe after some time, they'll be able to be more eligible to receive something more direct. That's all. Many of us came to Krishna consciousness worshiping Lord Shiva. So we were worshiping Lord Shiva usually for some kind of material benedictions. But Shiva's purifying us by allowing us to worship him, and he's bringing us to Krishna through those who worship him. So it's not always direct for everybody. It's gradual. This is the gradual process. This is kindergarten.
Okay, now I get it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But you don't want to go back to kindergarten, do you? Okay. We're getting PhD stuff here. Forget about the kindergarten. Okay, so now. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. My obeisances to all the devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I had this question. Say that in this life, when we go through suffering, it's through our previous lives' actions. So sometimes when we are going through some acute phase of suffering, is it recommended to chant something like Narayan Kavach as recommended in this 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, or shall we not do that? I mean,
No, there's a nice prayer if you want to chant for suffering. Go to the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 8. 10, 14, 8.
Sorry, Maharaj, Bhagavad Gita 14:8.
10th canto,
Oh, sorry.
14th chapter, verse number 8. This is a recommended prayer.
Famous Brahma verse.
Yes, Lord Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna. Tatenukampam sushamiksyamanam bhujane vatvitam vipakam vidvagvahubhir viradha namaste jiveta yomukti padesha dayabhak. Somebody read the translation.
Should I, Maharaj? My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offerings. You respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim.
Mhm. So there you go. That's it. So tolerate it patiently and offer respects to the Lord while you're going through all of these. And then if you do that, you're actually thanking the Lord. My dear Lord, you're giving me just a small amount of suffering. I'm actually doomed to much more. But since you're so merciful, you're only giving me a small portion of what I actually deserve. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances completely with heart, mind, and words, body. And then it says here, and Prabhupada uses the example, if you're born in a rich family and your parents are, leaving the world, then all you have to do is stay in the family and you get the inheritance. What was your qualification? You just was connected to the family. That's all. So just stay in Krishna consciousness, accept the mercy of the Lord on whatever way it comes, thank the Lord for whatever is, and go on with your devotional service. Then you're eligible to go back home, back to Godhead, simply by behaving in that way.
Maharaj, so even if we recite Narasimha Kavach, Narayan Kavach, we should take it as if we are remembering the Lord rather than thinking about anything else. Is it correct?
You can recite the Narayan Kavach. Yeah, that's nice. That these nice prayers. But go into the spirit of the prayers as you're reciting them. That's where it engulfs the mind and the heart when you get into the mood of the prayer.
Thank you, Maharaj. That clarifies a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. But be happy. I'm saying that to you because you are the example of one who is happily executing Krishna consciousness.
No, Maharaj, there are times when it becomes very difficult to to stay happy. So I'm just trying to think of ways how I can remain connected. I'm still very beginner at a very beginning stage.
I forget one of the names of Krishna is one who gives happiness to everyone. So stay in connection with Krishna and you'll always be happy. Even if it appears to be something else, it's actually an opportunity for greater gain, spiritual gain.
Thank you, Mataji. Maharaj, there is one question from Ras Vilasni Radha Mataji on the chat. She asking, Hare Krishna Maharaj and everyone, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Guru Maharaj. Her question is, as you said, Krishna loves everything, every living entity. But why do the wise Gyanis not attain Krishna's love? Although they have so much knowledge, they read so many things, Shastras, because the end of all Vedic knowledge is to surrender to Krishna and chant. But still, they are unable to understand this. Why?
They're attached to their gyan, they're attached to their knowledge. They think knowledge is superior. They think the culmination or the accumulation of knowledge brings them to a stage of freedom from material suffering. Therefore, they consider that the goal. But Lord Brahma shoots that hole down, that after some time they will fall from their so-called superior position because they don't worship the Supreme Lord. So their gyan will turn to agyan after some time. Because they've accepted an intermediate platform And therefore, because they're not going to Krishna in devotion, they have to fall down and again perform material activities. Gyan realization, but Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Gyanam Amante, Gyanam Amam Papadyante, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadurlavaha. After many, many lives of cultivation of knowledge, one actually comes to the understanding that to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the perfection of all knowledge. That's Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, verse number 19. And that's a very important verse. So yeah, those who cultivate knowledge will actually come to the point, I mean, if they're actually cultivating knowledge, they'll come to the point that what's the end of knowledge? Not knowledge itself. Knowledge is not an end in itself. There's a purpose for knowledge. They say the purpose is to free yourself from suffering. But what about that happiness? The Gyanis experience happiness that comes with no suffering. So if you don't suffer, that's a kind of happiness. But it's not the real principle of happiness is the principle of love, which comes by relationships. Therefore, they don't take up any kind of relationship. They just they develop the mood of detachment and cultivation of knowledge. And therefore, their attainment is temporary and insufficient. And then again, they fall down to the material world. Aruna Krishna, Padam Padam Padanti Yada. So that's spoken by Lord Brahma. They again come back to the material world and take up material activities. You see that even today. As many of these yogis, they have their own little businesses now. They sell herbs or incense or some kind of medicines now. They pretty much in a mode of goodness, just doing mode of goodness activities.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So just chant and dance and forget about these gyanis.
Yes, Maharaj.
So Maharaj, we don't have any further questions or comments. Devotees, any last questions you would like to?
Vrindavannath, don't you have any questions?
I have Maharaj, was just one thing, Maharaj, before this question, you mentioned one thing that Krishna name which pleasure giving. Is that not Ananda?
There's a word for happiness, which is not Ananda. It's another terminology. There was a devotee who had that name too. He was living in America. It's a name for Krishna, one who gives happiness to others. Just like we have our Sukavaha. See, I don't know if she's there today. I don't see her anywhere. But
No, Guru Maharaj, I'm here listening.
Okay, there you are. So Sukavaha means one who gives happiness to others. So you see the word Sukha is happiness. So there is another term, there's a more of a masculine term for that also, one which is referred to as Krishna. I don't remember the name. And the devotee I met, he was always happy. So sometimes he picked names according to people's character. Like
Maharaj,
Vrindavan,
I have
the Vrindavanath means the Lord of Vrindavan, means the only time you're happy is when you leave London and go to Vrindavan or Mayapur or Jagannath Puri. And you come back and you have to do whatever you're supposed to do.
Yes, Maharaj. Potency of Dham is really, really very powerful.
Yeah.
So Maharaj, I have one, maybe if it's okay, related to tomorrow occasion, Balram Jayanti. So we all celebrate Balramji appearance in different modes, in different forms. But I was in fact planning to ask this question for tomorrow, that should we really celebrate tomorrow or serve Lord Balramji tomorrow in the mode that we could get the real bhakti, because he is the one who removed all the sins from the heart and then brings real bhakti. Is that the real mood we should worship Lord Balramji?
Balaram represents Guru Tattva. He is the supreme personality of Guru Tattva. All of his activities are in relationship to serving Krishna in a pure way. He comes as Krishna's brother, but he also comes as Krishna's servitor. So he's teaching the perfection of how to worship the spiritual, how to worship the Lord in the position of the spiritual master. So we can honor him as being the perfect example of the knowledge that comes by way of Guru. And the activities also.
Thank you, Maharaj. I remember His Holiness Sachin Maharaj in one of the lecture on Balram Jayanti, he mentioned that Balramji is carrying plow, so he can keep the soil fertile. So if you pray in that mode, he can keep our heart fertile for, like as you said, as a guru, to give that seed of bhakti.
Yeah, that's why he carries the plow. Cultivating the heart, and so they could plant the seed of bhakti. That's perfect.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Once the bhakti seed is planted, then hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord will make the plant water and grow very fastly. That seed comes from Guru. Okay, thank you.
So unless any last question from anybody, with Maharaj's permission, I will close. Any last minute?
We have Janava on the call this time. And she's a real scholar, but she's a little shy. So maybe Vrindavan Nath, you can encourage her.
Sorry, Mataji, I missed the name.
Janava.
Oh,
Janava.
Janava Mataji.
Yeah, she comes on as Nuria. You see Nuria.
Nuria.
Oh, okay. So Nuria Mataji, you would like to have any questions, comments, realization?
See, her name is Janava.
To Guru Maharaj and senior devotees, Hare Krishna. Sorry, I cannot, I'm not able to change the name. So it is Nuria and it's me, Janava, to say hello to everyone and very nice association, the lecture. I hope I can join more and greetings to everyone. Feel inspiration from Srimad Bhagavatam and Guru Maharaj explanation and Srila Prabhupada mission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janava Mataji.
Molto gracia.
Maharaj, you have to tell us what does that mean?
Mhm.
Probably
Ask-
think.
Ask Olga what Moto Gracia, she'll tell you. Olga will tell you.
So thank you very much.
Okay, great. So with everybody permission, I will close this class today. Very nice occasion of Julan Yatra also. So thank you, Maharaj, very much for your nice, really enlightening words. After some time, I could get that personal association. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, devotees, for joining today class. Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnav Brind ki jai.
Jai.
Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Maharaj, please
Hare
accept my
Krishna.
apology.
Nice
Thank you, Maharaj. Please accept my
Thank you,
apology.
Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful lecture.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare
Prabhupada
Krishna.
ki jai.
Maharaj, you said to take all the opportunities to do service in the temple, so I am here in the temple doing my service.
Good.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I missed out while I was on vacation, so now I grab every opportunity to come and serve Lord here in the temple. Hare Krishna.
Good. That'll make the devotees happy.